Hey, it's Alan. Welcome back. Now, not all sites use forms, but if you do use forms, you probably want them to look a little more modern than the default kind of appearance. So I'm going to just make up a new page. I think I will copy index.html, paste it in, rename it to formcontrols.html, and I'll take out those cards I put in. And I already typed up some tags for forms, so I'll just paste those in here. I'm sure you don't want to watch me sit there and type form controls. Okay, so for my little working example here, I have a few controls in a table with labels in the left column and boxes in the right column. That has a class of controls. And then under the table, I have a checkbox. Let me wrap these in their own paragraphs so that they've got some gaps between them. And notice I am using a label for each control type. So that allows me to, make a separate styling for labels. I've got some radio buttons here under favorite colors. And then I have a select box, which is basically a drop-down box with foods. And then I have a few buttons, submit button and button type. The controls don't actually do anything. They're just dummy controls for styling purposes. All right, now if I go take a look at that page, the labels will have the font that I applied to my article, that Open Sans font. But other than that, they're just plain vanilla, and they have that almost 1990s kind of look and feel to them. So our goal here is going to be to give them a little better, more modern appearance that blends better with the rest of the site. All right, and that we're going to do in CSS. And I will make a new section at the end of the article section. I'll call it Form Controls. Again, this is just for my future reference when I'm scanning through looking for controls. And we'll start with that table, which is, I said table class equal controls, so I'll make a style rule for that. And let's just stick a border around it, make sure that I targeted it correctly. Refresh the page in the browser, and yep, that's it. Okay, now I'm going to copy that whole style rule, and I'm going to change it so it points to TD colon nth child open paren 1 closing paren, which is the first cell in each of the rows, and I'll right align that text. Let's see how that looks. Better, but a little close. Maybe I'll add a little padding to the right side of that. So padding dash right colon, let's say 4 pixels, 4 px. Let's see if we widen the page, what's going on that. With that, say I wouldn't mind making those a little more flexible so that they use more of the available space. So I think what I'll do is in my style sheet, I'll do a style rule with table.controls input for the first 2 boxes, comma, table.controls text area for the second one. And I'm going to give them a width expressed in percent so they can kind of grow and shrink with things. So let's make that like, I don't know, width of 100%. And let me get rid of this red border around the table. Let me take a quick look at that. All right, so I guess we need to give the table some kind of a width. This could just be on a regular page, but let's give the table a width of, say, like, I don't know, how about 90%? Then reload the page again, and let's see how that plays out. Yeah, that's better. Now, if that were like on a login page or something, then it would be nice to have it centered and stretching out like that. Now, for the labels on all these controls, I use the label tags, and just to show that they're kind of interactive, you can always do like a label colon hover kind of style rule and say, something happens when they touch the mouse pointer to the label, maybe just a subtle color change or something. So let me go grab my colors that I picked earlier. Maybe I'll go with the dark blue. And, apply that when, just when the mouse pointer's hovering over the label. And again, it just is a little visual cue that, it's an interactive kind of thing. Totally optional to do this, of course. Okay, so then after I refresh and move the mouse pointer through the labels, you can barely tell, but they're lighting up a little when the mouse pointer's there. And that just kind of gives people the visual cue that it's a clickable thing. Let me narrow this down a little. Okay, and if that's too subtle, you could always make it a brighter color. But let's stick with that for now. And now let's talk about modernizing the appearance of the text boxes and that text area thing. The drop down, which is the select, and even the button. We can set them, we can display them as inline blocks. So one thing that does is it lets you apply margins and padding and stuff, but it doesn't make it the full width of the page, so it doesn't jump to its own line. Then we can stick a border on it, subtle little border, 1 pixel. It already has a border, but we'll do our own so we can control them a little better. And let's say the radius on those is like 5 pixels, very subtle rounding. And let's say the padding is like 8 pixels. That enlarges them, fattens them up a little, which kind of is a more modern look. And we can put a little margin space between them, top and bottom of 6 pixels, nothing to the sides. Refresh. That's more like it. That's more the style you see these days for those kinds of controls. Alrighty, what else can we do here? How about we make a little bit of a style for when the control has the focus. That is, like if it's a text box when the cursor's in there. That's another visual cue to help people keep track of where they are. I'll copy the existing style rules, and I don't think I'll do the button though. I have a different idea for a button, but let me get rid of these. Okay, we'll say input : focus, so it only applies when it has the focused. And do the same for the text area and the select box. And then let's just say the border is solid, 1 pixel. Let's start with red, see if we even targeted these correctly. Refresh the page, click on a control, and ooh, looks kind of purple. I know why that is. There's an outline that goes on there when they have the focus. I'm going to set the outline to none, and then only my highlighted border should stay. It should look red. Truthfully, I don't have any desire to make it red, though. I was thinking about making it like a box shadow, a real subtle thing. So that would be box-shadow, if I can ever type the word shadow. And one of the blues I had before, let me go see what those were again. I'll grab this light blue color. Oh, but you know what? I want to do this kind of semi-transparent, so I have to convert that to RGB. So I'll say Google search for convert hex to RGB, and grab the first one, pop that in there. All right, that's my RGB color for that. So I'm going to say, where to go? 0 X offset, 0 Y offset, 0 blur, a spread of 3px. I'll just stick the RGB color in right now as is, and to make it kind of happen a little slowly, I'm going to put on a transition of like 1/4 of a second. Okay, and that just makes it a little more animated, very subtle but animated. And I'll copy that and put it under for the same controls up above when that state is lost. All right. Okay, let's go see how that plays out. Now when I click see, that's too stark. What I really want to do is something like an RGBA, so we get the alpha, RGBA, and make it almost transparent, like 0.3. And we can actually put the blur on it too. So 3 pixel blur, 3 pixel spread. It makes it like a glow. Okay, so let me refresh the page, and when I click on one, there we go. That's what I was looking for. Just kind of gradually lights up when you click it. Alrighty, what else have we got down there? We got some buttons down there. They look pretty bland. That would be input type equal submit, or, you know, there's a bunch of different types of button. We'll just do input type equal submit, input type equal button, and just regular button. All right, and then for a background color, let's use one of my predefined colors. They're way up at the top of my style sheet here. How about the medium blue? Would be perfect, I think. We'll make the background color for the buttons that color, and the foreground color will make white. Color white. All right, and let's see how that looks. Refresh. Nice, that's what I was hoping for. Maybe I could do the text a little bigger, but let's stick with that for now. Let me just copy this style rule, and I'm going to make style rules for the hover state. So I have to stick a :hover on each of these, and hover is when the mouse pointer is touching the item, it's hovering over it. Okay, and then I'll make the border outset 1 pixel gray, you know, keeping it subtle. And I'll copy this whole thing, and we'll do a set of style rules for the active state, which is when the mouse pointer's on there and the mouse button is pushed in, and we will make that the inset style so the button has a subtle pushed in look to it. All right. All right, let me refresh that, and we'll come down, and when I click, yeah, that's all I wanted. Something simple like that. And last but not least, I usually like to make my checkboxes and radio buttons a little larger than the default, and maybe put a little space between the radio buttons. So let me do a input type equal checkbox, and where am I here? Okay, and then typically I will do like a width of 18 to 22 pixels. See how tiny it is right now? I'll go with the 22 for now. Let's say width, 22 pixels, height 22 pixels. I usually set the vertical line to middle, which seems to line it up better with the neighboring label. Vertical line middle. All right, and let me just grab this whole style rule, and I'll do something similar for the radio buttons. So that'll be input type equal radio, and maybe do the width and height at like 18 pixels. Keep the vertical line middle. Now I like to put a little space between them. So what you can do is put a little space at the left of each radio button, and that keeps it from getting too close to the previous radio button's text, so it's easier to tell which label goes with which radio button. All right, that's a simple thing to do. Format that, refresh the page, and those should get bigger. All right, so I think that looks pretty good. I'm good with that. Pretty modern looking. You can refine more if you want to, but I wouldn't make them any bigger than that. Okay. And that's it. That's all I have for this course, unless you guys come up with something that I didn't think of and I can add another lesson. But for now, we'll leave it at that. So I thank you for watching. I hope this served you well. If you think of anything else I could add, let me know. And I hope to see you around the net. Okay, bye-bye now.